We've been getting English original sets for a while now, and luckily there's no end for them in sight, as 7 Deadly Sins is releasing this Friday and Ruby has been announced for the winter. However, it really wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that the sets we've gotten so far have been somewhat underwhelming. For some reason, Bushiroad has decided to play it pretty safe when it comes to the English originals. While Japanese sets are constantly experimenting with something new or pushing the envelope power-wise, the English original sets can seem a bit unoriginal. Bushiroad's design space for the English original seems to be mostly limited in comparison to that of the Japanese side. Cardcaptor Sakura and Batman Ninja also felt somewhat outdated for the time they released in. They felt a bit like older sets with modern tools sprinkled in. Adventure Time was a huge step in the right direction and seems to be an actually solid set, but then they reined it back in with the release of Mob Psycho, giving it some very good cards, but making it really awkward to build due to the many traits included. The unique parts of the sets are also some of the most flavorful parts, and they're honestly pretty well done. For example, the 2-1 Sakura having a change ability, changing into one of the 4 Sakura using a different clear card, with each having their own abilities and game plan. In Mob Psycho, the Reagan level 3 gets stronger burns, more abilities, and even more power based on Mob reaching his limits. And then we have Batman Ninja that has a gorilla that transforms into Batman. There are more examples of this, and all of these managed to somewhat capture the essence of the anime, but they messed up by sacrificing strength and consistency for the sake of flavor. Now competitive wise, Cardcaptor Sakura and Batman Ninja have had their chance to shine, and they've seen at least some success due to a couple of very dedicated players that play the sets even despite their flaws. Adventure Time and Mob Psycho came out during the pandemic and haven't had many chances to perform yet, but while Adventure Time has had one top 8 during BSFO and is looking really promising overall, Mob Psycho hasn't been as lucky. But now in comes 7 Deadly Sins, and Bushiroad seems to be ready to shake things up a bit. They seem to not be afraid of making sure that 7 Deadly Sins becomes a top competitive set and has given it some of the best tools we've seen in other sets to achieve that. Just giving the card list a quick glance will make that apparent. The level 0 game is insanely stacked. They have given us a 2k clean cut that gains 1.5k in the level on play, while also giving us a 1.5k chaser that gains an additional 2k power if it has a marker, with the marker being gained on play as well. They've given us a Salvage Riki and a Spawn Riki, both of these having some kind of power pump attached to it. We also have some free consistency increasing cards included in an on-reverse Rize with top checking abilities, and this double hand fixing cards that's really strong with a combination of abilities we've started to see more often. Then they've given us all the standard toolbox stuff you'd expect from a good set, including a drop searcher with extra soul, different types of drop salvages, climax swappers, a salvage brainstorm with cross-turn power, and the best part of this is that none of it is restricted in any kind of way with neither traits, name or color, other than the main trait. While the level 0 game in the previous English sets has always been at least somewhat decent, the level 0s presented here really are at the top tier level. At level 1, I'd like to highlight the 2 main climax combos, starting off with the Elizabeth level 1. The Elizabeth has the on attack meal 2 salvage level climax combo with some decent amount of power tacked on. This combo will always have the issue of somewhat being restricted to salvaging mostly our early game cards, but putting this type of climax combo on a choice trigger was pretty smart, as the choice trigger alone will get us to run higher counts of level 2+, just for the sake of having more triggers. Then we also have the Elaine level 1 combo, being only 500 power weaker on attack than the Elizabeth, but having cross-turn power instead and giving us access to a check top 4 climax combo on a door trigger, which can make deck building a lot more forgiving. Also note that there's a finisher that also combos on the same climax, which only adds to that deck building flexibility as well. Both of these combos reach power thresholds in line with other sets, but if that's not enough, then 7 Deadly Sins has a plethora of power pumping cards available for almost every situation. A lot of utility cards in this set also have some power pump attached to it as well, so power never seems to be an issue. The mid game of 7 Deadly Sins is probably the weakest aspect of this set, but we do have some solid early plays available to us between the Stock Healer and the Jacked Up X. Both of these having different early play conditions, meaning we'll always be able to play at least one of the two to tide us over to the late game. The level 2 lineup isn't that impressive, but at least like to highlight the fact that it has a Fumio and the free fresh counter. They also included this 2-1 profile that gets quite big and refunds the stock for reversing a level 2 or higher character, but this is probably the weakest version I've seen of this profile. It can still get pretty big, so it might be worth considering. The main level 2 is the 2-1 Elizabeth, but talking about her is useless without mentioning the star of the set, which is the Meliodas finisher. Now the Meliodas on its own is an 11k healer with a burn during your opponent's attack phase that activates when the character across from it attacks. While the delayed burn might seem slightly awkward, hitting for 2 is a great number to swing back with and could leave your opponent in a very rough spot if it manages to stick, as there's little window for them to heal back. The 2-1 assist mentioned before makes this card even more of a beast, as now not only does our Meliodas become untargetable, we also make it so that during his battle we get anti-burn and enough power to keep Meliodas alive. These two cards can completely shut down most of the current game plans. It honestly feels like the culmination of what they've been trying to achieve with, for example, the Reflect Sakura and the Reagan plus Mob assist. However, this time Bushiroad is not really holding back and has removed most of the awkwardness surrounding those two combos. The Meliodas combo could potentially be meta defining. It'll at least force players to adapt a bit to include some kind of out against the 2-1 assist if they plan on using their burns, or build their deck around preventing the Meliodas from sticking to the board in the first place. While cards that allow for side attacks without penalty to take place do play around the anti-burn, they will not play around the Meliodas' burn, as he only checks for the opposing character to attack. Bounce back to hand or some other kind of hard removal will help against these cards, but due to the Elizabeth giving hexproof to the Meliodas, it means that the opponent will need multiple sources of removal to deny the burn too, with a single bounce only denying the anti-burn. The best counter to 7 Deadly Sins at the moment seems to be 7 Deadly Sins itself, using a combination of the bounce level 3 Gil together with our top band, with the bounce back removing the anti-burn and our own anti-burn denying the burn 2s when our Meliodas attacks. As for other notable cards at level 3, we have a stock swap, which means we do have access to a stock swap Fumio combo. We also have some cards that have abilities attached to it that were usually seen on lower level cards. There's the spawner Merlin that also has a blink ability attached, and we have a healer assist that has memory flip effect, which can play around certain anti-heal and anti-burn. Competitive wise, it feels that the level 3 Meliodas will be the play most of the time. I'd personally play it in a red-green-yellow build at first, with the lane combo at level 1, but a green-yellow 8-choice build is probably around the same level, if not stronger. So yeah, these were just my initial thoughts and opinions after a quick glance at the full set list. There isn't really much you could say that 7 Deadly Sins specifically lacking, other than during the mid-game. Its standby cards could have probably used a buff, but it's still too early to tell. One thing is for sure, and that is that Bushiroad is obviously trying to up their English original game, and it really does show. However, there's only so much you can do with their current approach, and while 7 Deadly Sins does seem really strong, it still feels somewhat generic. Hopefully they'll opt to experiment and take more risks in the future. I'm cautiously optimistic that they will be doing so, and I'm excited to see what they come up with for Ruby. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.